Hello guys and welcome to the first Los Blancos podcast of 2022. I hope you guys have a brilliant 2022 and I hope you guys had a brilliant Christmas and over the festive period. I hope you got to see your families. Lovely time, we're back anyway. Me and Sean, we're back to discuss some more transfers. The Getafe preview for later on today, as well as Haaland coming in. Maybe. We don't know. Maybe he is coming in. Anyway, hope you guys enjoy today's video and let's get right into it. Okay, so the first part of today's podcast, we will be doing, let's start with the transfers. So, I've got a list here of some very good players who have been linked with Real Madrid in the last few weeks, months, since we've last done the transfers. Now, this has become a regular part of the podcast, every now and then. We go through some of the transfer links, and I think, this certain list, a lot of these players look like they could definitely sign for Real Madrid. So without further ado, let's begin with the first player, and it's the Canadian international, Jonathan David. Now, this season for Lille, he has been brilliant. Last season, he got off to a slow start, but he started to speed things up with Lille in their title-winning campaign. This season, he's been the reason why Lille has got to the Champions League knockout stages, and why Lille aren't, slumping around in near relegation. Obviously, their performances don't deserve that, but they haven't been getting the goals. And I think this season, Jonathan David, in 25 games, he scored 15 goals. His goals have been super important, and I think his agent has said that this would be his last season at Lille, and I think, where is he going to go next? There's not many options after Lille. The regulars will come up, Man United, Real Madrid, Barcelona, all these teams will come up. But I think Jonathan David is a good alternative for Erling Haaland. So what do you think of Jonathan David?
Okay, so basically Jonathan David is an exciting striker, and I like him a lot because he also has this boost of speed. He also likes to come in on the left channel, the inside left channel, sometimes similar to way Vinicius plays a bit, or sometimes similar to way Mbappe plays a bit, because he has that boost of speed, to get past defenders, and he also is a bit tricky as well. He's a talented player. He is honestly a good player who can actually make a decent contribution to this club. But as we always say, that I think I've said this a few times in these podcasts, is that he is an exciting player. But why would we sign him if he basically plays in the similar position of Kylian Mbappe, basically? So he's a talented player, but I question the need for the signing. If we do make it,
Yeah, I do get that, but as we'll go on to explain later, I personally don't think Haaland is the brightest idea to bring in at Real Madrid. I'll get into my reasons. Don't leave the podcast now. But I think Jonathan David is a good player, and I think he is a similar type of player to Mbappe, but ultimately in the front three, you're gonna have to get three players, and I think when you've got Benzema and Haaland together, they're going to want playing time. However, if you tell Jonathan David you're playing behind Benzema, you're the next in line after Benzema leaves, then I think he'll accept it a bit more than Haaland. So I think, ultimately, if you could mould him into being a striker. That's a very big could, and he can play all across the front line, which is quite important. And I think this season, he's been fantastic, and I think he warrants it. He also presses quite a lot. Ancelotti said, how much he wants to play with more intensity with this Real Madrid team. I think, the fact is that Benzema up front, along with that midfield, is just, they can't press to the maximum. So I think if you bring in Jonathan David, I think it does increase our possibilities to switch to a press. So let's move on to our next player. Let's not spend too long on this player because I will be discussing him in the Haaland bit, which is Dusan Vlahovic. Now, I really love Dusan Vlahovic already. This year he's been fantastic. Last year, in 2021 he scored 33 goals in all competitions across the whole of the last year. He was fantastic. He had more goals than Haaland actually last year, and this season he's really, he's taken it to another level. 19 games and 16 goals. He's been fantastic, and I think this guy is just the finisher in Serie A right now. He is the best striker in Serie A right now, and that's a league that includes the likes of Zlatan, includes Edin Dzeko, includes Ciro Immobile. This is, he is a fantastic player. I think, there will be a lot of sides looking at him. I think if we want to buy a player and for cheaper than Haaland, I think Vlahovic is our man. So, what do you think on Dusan Vlahovic and the seasons he's having so far this year?
Yeah, of course, definitely he's such an amazing finisher who can definitely not just make a good contribution but also become an important player in the squad. I also, would definitely save a bit of what I'm saying about him when we're speaking about Haaland later on, because I definitely believe that it can be we can definitely interchange the conversation for him in both sections. So definitely, all I would say for now is that he's a very good striker who can definitely make a good impact with Real Madrid, basically.
Yeah, he's a fantastic player, and I would love to see him at Real Madrid one day. Let's move on because don't worry, we will discuss him in the Haaland section later on. But let's move on to our next player, which is a guy who's going on a free in the summer. He plays for Ajax, right back. Nusayr Mazraoui, Moroccan right back. He's really, really good. I think he's gone underrated for Ajax really, because he was in the team that beat us in 2019, and I think he was one of the most underrated performers of that Champions League season. I think it's still to this day he doesn't get his recognition, and I think his ability to maintain that width on the right, and I think his athletic ability and his ability to put it across into the box and get back immediately, I think it's kind of underrated. And right back's been a problem position for us, not because we haven't had the quality there, but we have had a lack of depth, and we've had to have Lucas Vasquez play there a lot. Nacho had to cover there quite a lot because of Carvajal's persistent injury problems. So Nusayr Mazraoui would be a really good player right now, especially for free from Ajax. They used to be playing as the most dominant side in the league. I think he would be able to handle that jump up. There's been huge rumours that Barcelona is extremely interested in him. I think if we go in for him, I think it's a 50-50 for him. I personally think he would pick Real Madrid over Barcelona right now.
Yeah, well, definitely, it's basically according to what he's offered. I think it may actually come down to that. And I also don't believe that it will just be Madrid and Barcelona interested in him, because I've definitely seen a lot of this player over the past few months, because there has been a lot of talk about him in many scout reports, and because how good he can be for other teams as well, because definitely many people are tipping him to leave Ajax. So he's actually a good fullback who's good defensively. He has a lot of energy, and he's also decent on the ball as well. So he's a good all-around fullback. Of course, he isn't, maybe I would say ahead of Carvajal, but I definitely believe that with his profile, that he can either be a good backup or also a player who can come in and make a good impact as well. Of course, he isn't. I don't believe that he is like maybe up there, like in the top, maybe top seven, or even top 10 best right backs in world football, but he is maybe a little outside of the gap and can definitely make a good contribution with his skill set. And I think his qualities can actually suit Madrid well with the wingers that we have, and also with the kind of football that Ancelotti plays sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, there's only I would say three super clubs, genuine super clubs that don't have a a notorious name at a right back, a name that strikes fear into the opposition. Look at Man City, and they've got Cancelo and Kyle Walker. Look at Liverpool, they've got Trent. Look at Chelsea, they've got Reece James. All these sides have brilliant right backs, whereas Real Madrid, Danny Carvajal, he's still extremely underrated, but I just don't think if you put Reece James alongside Carvajal, I genuinely don't think it's a match. And I think, you look at Bayern as well, which we're going to move on to in a second. They're right back. And look at Barcelona. Barcelona don't have a world-class right back there. Serginho Desti's not brilliant, is he? So let's move on to our next player, Benjamin Pavard. Now, right back for Bayern, and I think he's often quite disrespected as the right back for Bayern, because if you look at Bayern's 11, he's the only player there who's not a household name, who's not world class. So I think you look at him, and he's very good at maintaining possession, and I think for Bayern that's all they need from their right back. They don't need a guy who's brilliant at crossing like Trent or brilliant defensively like Kyle Walker. They just need a guy who's at least adept at playing right back defensively and going forward, and I think that's what Benjamin Pavard is, and I think Bayern would be willing to let him go. I don't think he's untouchable like a lot of their other players, and I think Bayern are always willing to negotiate, because they're not like PSG stubborn. They're not like Man City's. Not Man City. They're not like Liverpool. They will always be willing to negotiate for their players, and I think Benjamin Pavard is one of those players that they will 100% be willing to let go. So what do you think of the possibility that Benjamin Pavard comes to Real Madrid?
I would definitely believe that this link is due to the fact that he can that he is centre back who can play at full back, right back to be specific, because that's a position that Madrid seem to have a great need for. However, I've seen him in the 2018 World Cup. I must admit that was the first time that I've seen the player. And he actually, of course, like you said, he's one of the names that isn't a household name. He even had to say it himself, he said that he isn't a fullback like Hakimi or like, I think it's Trent Alexander-Arnold, he said. But he did say that he is one of the fullbacks that a team may need, to help stabilize the defense, etc. I believe that that's what he can do, he can be a good, solid defender. A few times when playing for Bayern Munich, he was left exposed a bit. I'm not going to deny that when they use speedy wingers against him on the left, but that happens to many fullbacks. Many centre-backs who play full-back on occasions. It happened to Nacho a few times, but obviously Pavard maybe is playing full-back more than Nacho, so definitely he would find ways, to adapt to that, so definitely he can improve as well. But he is a good player, but of course he can be exposed a bit, but I'm sure that as time moves forward, he's going to understand and, improve on that.
Yeah, I mean, with Bayern, their defence is always going to be exposed because of the fact that they play right on the halfway line in terms of their defenders. So they always play that high line, and that means that if you do have speedy attackers, then they can easily just get in behind. But when you've got a guy such as Manuel Neuer patrolling the whole of that half, it's a lot more difficult than just getting behind. So let's move on to the next player, which is another Bayern player, but this one I think is a genuine link, and I think it has a genuine possibility to happen this summer, and that's Corentin Tolisso. Now, it's pretty clear that Tolisso will probably leave Bayern at the end of the season. Tolisso is not exactly a starter at Bayern, is he? And you can't blame him for not being a starter ahead of the likes of Kimmich and Goretzka. So with Tolisso, I think he would be a useful squad option, because that's what he's been at Bayern, and I think he's good at doing everything. And I think a lot of Bayern fans, they don't say he's world class. He's not world class, is he? But I think he's good at doing everything, and I think at Real Madrid that could be a valuable quality. And I think alongside Valverde and Camavinga, he could be a useful player. And I think against a couple of the Bundesliga sides. He's probably the only out and out box to box midfielder. They usually play with Muller and Musiala ahead of him as well. So he's had to patrol that midfield all by himself. So I think he's energetic and he's a very good player. So what do you think on Corentin Tolisso?
Yeah, of course. He is a good player. He's also good on the ball. I must admit, one of the first times I've actually seen like a full game, not a full game, but a decent amount from him was in the 2017-2018 season when Bayern Munich played Real Madrid. And he was one of the players from Bayern Munich who was honestly causing us a lot of problems in that midfield. How good he was in terms of receiving the ball, turning, making those passes in behind. Along with Ribery, I'm not too sure if you can recall that game when Ribery was amazing. Navas had to make saves, a lot of saves, etc. Tolisso was one of the main players who was contributing to that with how good he was in dictating the game and making a nice lead passes in and between our defense. So I definitely believe that he can have a good addition. I think he's maybe he has similar traits to many of our midfielders, but he's quite different in a way, So I think his contract is expected to expire next season. I think
this summer.
This summer, yes, this summer, and that's why there is the link. But I do believe that we have a good number of midfielders, and of course he sometimes get injured a lot as well. So I must admit that I don't think that is a signing that we would need. Of course, he'd be a good addition because he's a good quality player, but I don't think that he's a player that we may need, in my opinion, personally.
Yep, okay, so let's move on to a very good player. Now, I watch him week in, week out for Leicester. He's genuinely fantastic. The Nigerian international, Wilfred Ndidi. Now, he's going to leave for AFCON in January, so this month. And I think he's been consistently one of the best midfielders in the Premier League for 3 or 4 seasons now, and I think he's like Casemiro. This is the closest anyone's going to get to Casemiro because you can't get a world-class player like Casemiro exactly in that mold, and I think Wilfred Ndidi is world class, and I think he's in that mold. And I think it's only a matter of time before Ndidi moves on. It seems to me that he's either going to move to us or Man United, and I think Man United will probably go in with a bid for him in the summer, either him or Declan Rice. So this season alone, 4.23 tackles per game, and he wins 3 of them. 22.8 pressures, and 8 of them are successful. 2.33 blocks, 2.64 interceptions, and 3 clearances per game. You can see he's just a defensive monster, and I think his distribution's not like world class or anything, but it's it's neat and it's tidy. So I think all he has to do is just play it to Tielemans or Maddison, and they'll do the offensive work for him. So I think he's a fantastic player, and he has dropped into centre-back a few times for Leicester. And I think if we want to get a guy to replace Casemiro in the next 2 or 3 years, I think Wilfred Ndidi is our guy.
Yeah, definitely. There's not much I can add in relation to him because he basically just explained exactly the type of player he is and the qualities he can contribute. So definitely I would just analyze maybe how would he fit if we sign him. So because I just, like I said, you made entire analysis there. It's not much for me to add. So how I think that he can fit in the squad is it's a bit difficult because definitely if you sign him, you expect that he's going to get some minutes. And it's difficult to see him, getting the minutes that he needs at Madrid right now if we make the signing. So he's a good player. I definitely believe that he can make an impact, similar to Casemiro. But I don't think that he will start to get the minutes that he needs. So maybe the timeline doesn't suit Ndidi to mature at this time, but he's a player, like most of the names today, who can make an impact.
Yep, okay, let's move on to our next player, Franck Kessie of AC Milan. And this season he's been brilliant. His contract is expiring next summer. So 21 games, 5 goals, 1 assist. He's the penalty taker for Milan, which is the majority of his goals. He's neat in possession. He's a good carries the ball well, and I think he's an all-action midfielder, and he's really good. Pioli's found out that if you put him in the hole in the defensive midfield slot, he can be a really good player as well. And I think Milan's successes have been down to Franck Kessie this season. He's been fantastic. So what do you think on Franck Kessie?
Yeah, an amazing box-to-box midfielder who can have a lot of energy to contribute to his team. So he will be a good addition. But obviously, many Madrid fans, not just me, would say, what does a signing like this means for Camavinga or Fede Valverde or even Antonio Blancos. We're down in the pecking order. So, a midfield signing is a technical one at this time because of Camavinga and Valverde's development, in my opinion.
Yeah, okay, let's move on to the last player in the list, and a player that's been rumoured to have agreed a transfer already, but those rumours have been squashed by the player's agent. It's Arsene Zakarian. Zakarian, I don't know how to say it. Russian 18-year-old, plays for Dynamo Moscow. 17 appearances, 4 goals, 5 assists this season, and he's a fantastic player. I do admit I do not watch a lot of Dynamo Moscow, but what I've heard from this guy is the talent in Russia. The best talent since Alexander Golovin, and it's his stats. When I was doing the research for this video, he was out. He looked out of this world, and I think watching the highlights package, obviously that only shows the good bits in a player, but I think he's very, very good for an 18-year-old, and he looks levels ahead of the Russian defenses, and I think Russia's one of those leagues where it's very competitive, so you can't exactly look down on it, and I think he would be a good addition. Transfer market value him at 10.8 million. I think that's a good deal if we go buy him, because he's not going to play for us right now, is he? But I think he would be a great guy to have, in the background developing. He plays left wing, centre mid or right wing. He preferably plays on the left wing. He cuts in, right-footed, and he's already got 4 caps for Russia. I mean, he's very, very good, and I really rate him highly.
Oh yeah, of course. I've seen a few of his videos. I've not seen him like in in-game action. I've not seen a full game with him. I've not seen any articles on him where sometimes we highlight some of his key strengths and weaknesses. However, in few of the highlight packages that I've seen of him, he does seem like an exciting talent. And the fact that he's 18 obviously would obviously mean that we would be happy to see Madrid sign him. So I definitely think that in the videos that I've seen that he is a good quality player, like many players, professional footballers. But however, I would definitely want to see more of him, to make an analysis of the player. So maybe in a few weeks time, a few months time, I can know a lot about the player. I haven't seen much of him because I must admit, like Vinicius when he was young, before we signed him, I saw a lot of videos of him and analyzing him a bit more. And so far, because I'm just recently knowing of the player, I haven't seen much about him, but I'm definitely interested in his talent at a first glance because it's a bit eye-catching if you have a look at it, to be fair. So I'm definitely interested in him, and I would love to see a bit more.
Yeah, one thing I do say before we close this section of the podcast is that he is the guy for Dynamo Moscow. He is the player that everything goes through. He is 18 years old. He is clearly the most talented player in that team, and I think he is leading the RPL for everything. He's brilliant. So. That's it for this section of the podcast. Next section, we will be talking about the Getafe game, which is at 1 o'clock today. So join us after this short interview. Okay, so today at 1 o'clock UK time, what's the time going to be for the game in Trinidad?
Yeah, I believe it's 9. I have to double check that, but I believe it's 9.
Yeah. Okay. So, 1 o'clock UK time. It's another team, another stubborn team in La Liga. We saw how we fared against Cadiz, a similar team, and it wasn't very good. It was a dull performance from us, not gonna lie, and we couldn't break down the opposition. Getafe is a similar team, but I think one thing has to be noted is that they've got significantly worse due to the departure of Jose Bordalas, their manager, and I think this season Getafe have been a lot worse than previous seasons. So I think this will be an easier game than seasons gone by. But I think Getafe are still going to just go for the draw 0-0, dull it out, make sure this game is completely unplayable. And I think that's just what Getafe do. And I think they're just going to be relying on set pieces and long shots and aerial headers just to maybe nick a goal, but ultimately that's their only source of goals and that's the only way they'll be scoring against us. So I think so. Let's start with our lineups. Goalkeeper, I believe Courtois has been cleared for this game, so we're going to start with Courtois the with the maybe of Lunin maybe playing if Courtois hasn't been cleared.
Yeah, of course. Normally, if Courtois is fit in La Liga, Courtois will play. So definitely good Courtois, unless maybe he has a bit of weakness, etc. After catching COVID. I hope he isn't feeling weak or is not 100%. Most likely he is feeling 100%. If he is, then Courtois should start.
Yeah. What I will say before we move on to the right back and the defence, is that we've got the Alcoyano game coming up, and Lunin is probably going to start that game. So, I think if Courtois is 100%, then I think he should play this game. So right back, I think Carvajal should play this game, right?
Yeah, I hope he's fit as well. And the good news is that there is the game against Alcoyano that um, during the week, I believe he should be rested in. I believe that he just came back from an injury. Did he just came back from another injury?
Carvajal?
Yeah, yes, he did. He missed the last 2 games actually
Yeah.
at fullback. So yeah, I believe that he should start. No, maybe Ancelotti might give him maybe 70 minutes like he did when he just came back from his first injury this season. So Carvajal should start.
Yep. Yeah, he had a muscular problem, I believe. So centre backs, we're going to go back into the rhythm of things, and we're going to say Militao and Alaba, presumably.
Yeah, Militao, Alaba, and we expect also Mendy to slot in as left back also.
Yeah, so Furlong, Mendy, left back. Defensive midfield. Now, do you go for Casemiro in this game, or do you go with Antonio Blanco?
I believe that Ancelotti will pick his best team, if I'm being honest. So I would definitely go for Casemiro. And I do know that even if it isn't Casemiro, I think he might just go Valverde. I don't think he will play Antonio Blanco now as a starter. So, however, Casemiro would be my number one for me, especially with the fact that he knows that most of the players who isn't playing as much can definitely have an opportunity in the cup.
Yeah, I mean, I said Blanco because we don't really need that defensive cover, defensive midfield for this game. It's Getafe. Their only offensive threat really is Enes Ünal, and he plays up front for them. So realistically, I think Militao and Alaba will be able to deal with him, the Turkish forward. So the other two centre mids, I believe, should be Modric and Kroos. Yeah, no problems there, I don't think.
Yeah, definitely Modric and Tony.
Okay, so this is where things get interesting because Vinicius and Luka Jovic are both out with COVID. They didn't test negative. They both came up with repeated positive tests. So let's start with the right wing because I think that's a bit less obvious. So who have you gone for right wing?
Well, actually, I have gone for Asensio for this one. Asensio, and let's speak. I will explain my decision after the final 11 is given, but I would just go for Asensio for this one.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think this is a good time to just get an inverted winger rather than an out-and-out winger in this game. So I think, cutting in Asensio could be a bit better than Rodrigo, maybe carving out a few long shot opportunities. So up front, Karim Benzema, no problems here. There's no need to discuss this one.
Yeah, of course, Benzema should be the number 9 as well.
Yeah, so left wing, this is where the problems lay because no Vinicius. He's been on red hot form, but COVID has struck him and Luka Jovic. So left wing, who have you gone for?
I've actually gone for Eden Hazard. There are many reports saying that he will start on today. And also Ancelotti is quite happy with him. Even Ancelotti said that he's happy with him before the game on yesterday. So I believe Hazard will get another opportunity to start and make an impact. So, of course, is Bale back on the bench as it was included in the squad yesterday?
I think he was included in the squad. Actually, I did see Peter on there, so Bale maybe not, but I'm not completely sure. I think we'll have to check that. I'll quickly check it. So, let's start by explaining our decisions. Do you want to start with Asensio?
Well, I do believe that, one of the main reasons I started Asensio is, like you said, early in the game, it's important that we, maybe have opportunities. Asensio can come in on his left foot, have a shot, or take a ball forward and combine with Benzema and Hazard. I'm not saying Rodrigo can't do that, but maybe Asensio, maybe this game maybe suits Asensio a bit more. And also, I would also like to say I do like Rodrigo off the bench for this game. He can come in on the left and on the right and make an impact. So I believe that he will be a more versatile player off the bench, in my opinion. If things isn't going our way, so that's one of my main choices to leave him on the bench, because I believe that he can make an impact on either wing off the bench. According to what the game needs.
Yeah, one thing I will say is that Rodrigo will always look to put a cross in when he's on the right, and I think, especially against this team, this Getafe team, putting in crosses is not a good idea, because all they're going to do is they're just going to say, all right, thank you, we're just going to head it away. Every single time, 10 times out of 10, they're just going to win the headers. So that's not a good idea. I think Asensio I'd rather get the shots than the crosses to this game, to be honest. So I just checked, Bale is not in the squad. I'm sure Ancelotti has his reasons. Maybe it's a bit of fitness issue, but Peter Federico is obviously in the squad. He may be utilised in this game, maybe not, but we will see in the match later today. Let's talk about Eden Hazard now. Last game we said that maybe he played pretty well. He had some nice touches, but I think there's this problem with Eden Hazard, and that's his bursts of pace, and I think he's lost the quick acceleration. And I think instead of trying to get the pace once again, I think maybe we should try and retrain the pace into him. Maybe we should, try and get him to learn how to be more, try and learn how to get that quick burst of pace once again, because I think that's probably the best idea rather than trying to harness it. So I think Hazard is perfect for this game. I think I'm going to try and get him on that left. He's not going to get another chance on that left again, beyond Vinicius coming back. So he has to impress on that left, otherwise it's back to the right beyond. Then I think, maybe Asensio on the left, trying to get him to go on the outside and maybe get a nice shot in on his left foot. But I think Carlo prefers him on the right, so yeah, that's no problem there. So I don't think there's any other talking points in this 11. Do you want to say a quick word about Getafe before we move on to the next section?
Not that much about Getafe. Just one quick point is that the last time we played them, we did draw 0-0 actually against Getafe last season. So hopefully that we can get the win on this time.
Yeah, okay, so let's move on to the next part of the podcast after this short interval. Okay, so next part, and the final part of today's podcast, the first one of 2022, we will be discussing Erling Haaland. Now, big rumours coming from Erling Haaland's camp saying that he's Real Madrid is his preferred destination. I think there's only three destinations, and I think the journalists have been saying this all along. The three destinations for him are either Man City, Real Madrid, or Barcelona. Now, personally, I just don't see how Barcelona have the finances to pull the move off. But as we saw, a couple of just like last week, clearly finances ain't a problem because they've just gone and spent 55 million on Ferran Torres. So, maybe we shouldn't rule out Barcelona just because of the finances. And in terms of Man City, I think they'll be probably going all out for him. It's either Haaland or Vlahovic for Man City. So, quick word on Haaland. What is your overall feeling on the Haaland signing, and do you think Real Madrid should sign him? Yeah.
Well, you can't really say if Real Madrid should sign Haaland without saying that Madrid are going to sign Kylian Mbappe as well. You can't just mention one without mentioning that there is interest in the other. So of course Mbappe is Madrid's main target, and that's okay. But where it gets interesting is the fact that they also want to sign Erling Haaland, and they claim, many reports and even La Liga's president say that Madrid have the finances to pull it off. Okay, so it gets more interesting when you don't count in the money, how much are you going to pay to him, etc. How is it going to work with La Liga, etc. It gets more interesting, when you try to pick a lineup, or when you try to analyze what that signing would mean for the players we have in the squad. So like for example, two of our best players this season, other than Courtois, is Benzema and Vinicius, and they have been one of the driving forces to where we are this season in terms of being 8 points clear at the top of the Liga, 17 ahead of Atletico, 18 ahead of Barcelona. Even though they have a game in hand, but they have been the driving forces behind that. And tossing them aside right now after maybe their best individual seasons individually and hopefully collectively when the season ends would be quite harsh. And there's definitely maybe no possible way that you make this work by playing Vinicius, Haaland, and Mbappe and Benzema in one straight lineup, unless the only player who I believe that can take the biggest hits is obviously Vinicius, because he's humble and hardworking, etc. So coaches will have to use that to say, what, you can play a bit deep, etc. XYZ. But in relation to Haaland, he is definitely a talented striker who has just power and potential, to be a dominant figure in football for the next 10 years, and that's what everyone says, but it's the truth, he definitely can make an impact along with Mbappe in world football, for many years to come, because he's so explosive, he's so strong, he's hardworking as well, and he's an amazing goal scorer, and that's also because he has so much power in his shots. There's so much you can say about him that can make him sound like the best striker in the world, because you can even make an argument for that, even though he's 21 years old. So I actually like him as a player, and the question is, how do we fit it? How do we fit it? I think that's the big question.
Okay, so we're gonna split this into three parts, three sections. This section we're gonna split into three parts. First part we're gonna be discussing financial reasons for and against signing Haaland. Then we'll be discussing tactical problems, and lastly we'll be talking about maybe some other options if we fail to sign Haaland. So let's start with the financials. Now, I've done a bit of maths here. I've done basic maths, it must be said, but I've estimated how much it would cost to sign Haaland. So we'll start with the transfer fee, the reported release clause. This is all in pounds, I believe. It's either in pounds or euros. So £75 million for his for a transfer fee. So that's for beginning. So release clause with Dortmund, he signed in his contract 2 years ago. So that's fine. £100 million wages over the course of his contract. Say if he wants £20 million per year. So that's over the course of his contract. So that's 100 million. Then he may also want £40 million as a signing bonus. So just generally coming in, that's general fee nowadays for a global superstar like Erling Haaland. And we know the big man next to him, Mino Raiola, 40 million agent fees as well. So all of that, it's 255 million over the course of his contract, including as well. You need to factor in all the bonuses, including stuff like appearance fees, goal bonuses, assist bonuses. All of that is going to factor into an enormous contract that could go into 300 million over the course of his contract, depending on how he plays. So we're talking about a huge financial outlay for a guy who has played very well in the Bundesliga and in the Austrian Bundesliga. So, obviously this guy is the world superstar along with Kylian Mbappe. And I think, you got to factor that in. He does deserve these numbers. I'm not saying that he doesn't deserve these numbers, but is it financially sensible to do this, as well as the factor that Kylian Mbappe is going to come in next summer? I haven't estimated that, but we're talking about huge financial numbers, for just the both of them. And we're also talking about the likes of Rudiger, Corentin Tolisso, maybe Pedro Porro, all of these people. They're going to ask for a lot of wages as well. That wage structure is definitely going to take a huge hit. So what do you think on the value and the price we have to pay for Haaland? Do you think it's fair, and do you think you would do it? 300 million, by the way.
That's honestly a difficult question asking now, because if you say that we're going to sign Haaland, and over the course of his let's just say 5 years at Madrid, he's going to cost maybe 300 million pounds. However, we're going to win a lot of trophies, etc. The value of the team will just be so high. Sales will be high. Merchandise sales will be so high. More fans at the Bernabeu. Of course, many people will sign up for it. However, we don't know the true financial position at Madrid. Of course, we can make smart guesses and quick analysis. However, we cannot really analyze, where Madrid is at financially. And I just think it's one of these occasions where you have to trust the president if he's making a deal like this, because he has shown himself to be a smart negotiator and very smart in terms of handling the financial side of Madrid. So I think it's something that we have to trust the president on, because I don't believe he's an idiot, because he's been every decision he's made, it seems like, that he has a plan if it doesn't go well, a mitigation plan for that. So I think we have to trust him in what he's doing. But however, it definitely is a lot of money, and I would definitely like if there's another team, not other than Barcelona, outside of Spain, who can take on Haaland, to avoid Madrid being put in that position, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of financial year, you said they would bring in quite a lot of money, but there's two other players I think that will bring in more money than Haaland. One of them's, I'm not going to include Cristiano Ronaldo and Messi, by the way, here, but Kylian Mbappe and Mohamed Salah, these two would bring in a lot of money for Real Madrid, a lot more than Haaland. Haaland at this moment in time is not anywhere near the revenue bringer like the other two are. And I think in terms of future, I don't think he's going to be one of those players that would bring in the revenue. I think Mbappe is perfect for that. I think Mbappe is good for bringing in revenue. I think he is the superstar. He acts like a superstar, and I think that's a big factor in. That's, he's like Ronaldo in that way. But Haaland's a bit, he just focuses on the football side really. He's not exactly working on the off the pitch, ways of thinking, all of that. He's not that type of guy. But in terms of success, this guarantees us a lot of success. Definitely in La Liga, especially with Barcelona and Atleti in the state they are in. In Europe, maybe, if once Pep leaves Man City, that's pretty much a guarantee. Bayern is probably the only other rival really. I don't consider PSG a huge rival in Europe once Mbappe goes. So I think ultimately, all of that considered, and it's in terms of PSG, the Qataris will probably leave after the World Cup. So I think a lot of that they've got to win. They'll probably leave after they win their first Champions League, whatever that is. But I just don't know about this Haaland deal. Financially, it doesn't make sense. And I think also, along with Haaland coming in, it also brings in Mino Raiola to the club as well. And I think that's a headache. That's a huge headache. You see how Man United deal with it. They're dealing with it super poorly. Sir Alex Ferguson famously just never dealt with Mino Raiola and never dealt with one of his players because he just didn't want to deal with it. And I think that was a smart decision. We can work without Mino Raiola. We don't need him. So I think he's a good player. Haaland, he's going to be the guy for the next 10 years. But financially, it's a huge outlay, and I think if we doesn't, and especially the Bundesliga's attacking offloads last few years, we're talking about Jadon Sancho, Luka Jovic, all of these guys who have left the Bundesliga, Kai Havertz, they've had poor careers after leaving the Bundesliga. So I think maybe I'm not suggesting he's going to be a flop, but it is a bit of a risk, especially with that huge outlay. So let's move on to the next section of this section. We're going to be talking about the tactical side of things. Now, you briefly mentioned the problems that are going to come around if Haaland comes in, and the main problem is you've got Vinicius, Benzema, Haaland, and Mbappe. So, along with it, these guys are they're going to be hugely difficult to deal with. And I think if you bring in Haaland, I think it's going to be lights out for Benzema. I think it's not going to happen for Benzema anymore. I think that's it. Because ultimately, you've got three of those guys. They're only going to play in the front line. You're not going to play them behind in the midfield, maybe, or in a slightly deeper role. Apart from Vinicius, I don't think any of them can play in a deeper role. And I think if you drop Vinicius, you lose a lot of defensive work rate, as well as, the fact is that Haaland can't play left wing, you can't play Haaland left wing. And I think it just proves just a headache, and I think it can be avoided. I think if you let him go to Man City, I think it can be avoided. And Haaland's so young, it works. If he's got another transfer left in him, this is not going to be his last transfer. You can do it in 10 years' time or so, maybe not 10 years, 5 or 6 years' time. He could go on another transfer. It's completely possible. But what do you think on the tactical problems, and how would you deal with it if Haaland did come in?
Yeah, of course, there will be tactical problems, and not just tactical, but internal as well. You have to understand that Benzema is a key figure at Madrid, and just casting him away, maybe in the long term, we'll understand the decision, and maybe everything will work out, and Madrid will win plenty of trophies, with Haaland as the number 9 and Benzema gone. But obviously, it will send a completely wrong message, in my opinion. I think it will. Benzema is, of course, the vice captain at this time, but you can say the captain because Marcelo isn't a starter. So Benzema is a captain, and just casting away a captain, you know, is it just doesn't seem like good in terms of for the team. For people who look up to Benzema and close to Benzema, like Modric, like Cruz, of course Casemiro, Carvajal. I'm sure a lot of these players are going to love Benzema, and so I just don't think that casting him away would be good for the squad, in my opinion. I don't think it would be good for the mentality of the team. So I just think if you sign Haaland, and because of that and only that, which I just mentioned, how important Benzema is and how good he's doing for us, you cannot sell Benzema. Benzema has to be important in this team. And so that leaves Vinicius as the player who will struggle the most, in my opinion. I genuinely believe that Vinicius will be the player who will have to take a backseat, because of course, like I said, Benzema status, and Vinicius will have to will have no choice but to adapt to such a deep position that doesn't suit him. But because he's doing so well, he will have the opportunity to play in another position to accommodate this. So I believe that he will be the player to feel the biggest pain out of it. And however, before, I'm not too sure if we're going to try and find a lineup for it. But if there's one coach, in my opinion, who I believe can get the best out of all of these players, the only coach, in my opinion, is Carlo Ancelotti, because he knows how to adapt to situations as a coach and make things work for a certain period of time. So I believe that he's the only coach who can maybe find a system to make it happen. So that's basically it, for me in terms of the tactical flexibility. But however, for me, if I have to make it work and play all of these players together, I would definitely have to play Vinicius maybe as a wide midfielder, similar like to a wing back, so maybe it's like what Thomas Tuchel is doing, like how he has Hudson-Odoi playing as a full back sometimes, Pulisic sometimes in like a deep position close to a full back. I think that's what we can get from Vinicius, and that means going to a back three, which Madrid doesn't do. However, I think that's the only way where we can have Benzema, Mbappe, and Haaland high up the pitch, and still keep Vinicius. I think that's the only way, in my opinion. Many people can say, yeah, we can play 4-4-2, Mbappe isn't going to play as a wide midfielder. That's impossible. You can't let Mbappe play as a wide midfielder. Vinicius can't do it. Can't do it, but Mbappe can't, and you won't. So yeah, it's difficult to see that fitting, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a bad tactical problem, because people will say that it's a good problem, but it's not. It's not a good problem, because ultimately it will lead to a catastrophic impact in the changing room, because it's just, dropping one of these superstars is not going to be good for you, is it? It's not going to be. Say if PSG just suddenly drop Neymar, Neymar's not going to be happy, is he? Whatsoever, he's not going to be happy whatsoever. Di Maria's not currently happy at PSG's, because he's not playing regularly, and I don't blame him. He's in my opinion, he's been PSG's second best player since Neymar joined. I don't think Neymar's been their best player. Mbappe's been their best player actually since PSG, and Di Maria's just been dropped for no reason because of Messi. I mean, Messi hasn't exactly lit the world alight at PSG, and I think there could be a similar situation here. You can't just suddenly drop Vinicius because Haaland's come in, can you? I mean, and you can't drop Benzema because Benzema. I've seen a lot of Real Madrid fans saying Benzema should play attacking midfielder. I think he should play in a number 10. Because of his all-round play, but it seems like such a waste. He's got maybe 2 years left in him. I think ultimately I would wait it out, because I wouldn't sign Haaland. I wouldn't sign Haaland, and I would just wait it out for Benzema to die out, and maybe that happens next year, and we might regret not signing Haaland. But I do think ultimately we should wait it out, and I think playing Haaland, and forcing Benzema to retire or leave, it's a bad idea, and I think ultimately I think Benzema and Mbappe should be allowed to play alongside each other in the team, and I think it's so annoying that it has to happen this year. It will be imagine if Benzema just suddenly had a catastrophic end, towards the end of the season where he goes on a barren run. Suddenly it doesn't look, so unobvious anymore, and it suddenly looks, you go buy Haaland and drop Benzema. That's what happens. But it's not though. That situation's very unlikely to happen, and I don't want it to happen either, because ultimately I have much more affection for Benzema than Mbappe. Not Mbappe, much more affection for Benzema than Haaland, and that's probably never going to change until Haaland scores so many goals for the club. So, have you got anything else to say on the tactical matters before we move on other options?
No, that's it. I think we basically touched on everything.
Yeah, I've got a few options here. I'm just gonna name them to you, and you're gonna give your opinion on it. So let's start with the first person on my list is a player I personally rate very highly. I've seen him in FC Dallas. I know that sounds a bit weird. FC Dallas in a Real Madrid video is not going to be the best of names to mention, but I think Ricardo Pepi, American talent, he's a very good player, and I think he's very, very talented. He's recently just moved into Augsburg. I think he could play for Real Madrid one day. He's a very clinical striker. So what he does is he gives Benzema a bit of time to die out, and then he can come in. So what do you think on Ricardo Pepi?
To be honest, if I'm being fair, I haven't seen much of him. So I would definitely have to take your analysis on your word for it, because you seem to have a better understanding of the player than me. But I've heard of the player in transfer news, etc. But I haven't known anything about his playing style, etc. So I'll have to take your word for it.
Yeah, he's a very tall guy. He's an extremely good finisher. You could liken him to a bit like Vlahovic, who we're going to move on to in a second. So let's move on to the next player, Amin Gouiri of Nice.
Is it possible you can repeat his name, actually?
Amin Gouiri. Oh, I might have said that wrong, but...
Oh, okay. Yeah, he's a decent option, However, after you call out all of the names and I give my analysis of them, I'm definitely going to not just call out a name, but give my opinion on the number 9 position, as well.
Okay, so Amin Gouiri, he's very quick. He's a good dribbler. He's a great finisher, and he's got a brilliant first touch as well. And he's one of these guys who plays for Nice. He's very, very good going forward. And I think this season he's had a breakout year. Used to play for Lyon. He's who could I liken him to? I could liken him to maybe Jota, Diogo Jota. I think left wing striker. I think he's a bit taller than Jota, but yeah, I really like him. He's a very good player. Now earlier we discussed Jonathan David. Obviously we're not going to talk about him for very long. So what do you think of Jonathan David?
Yeah, like I said before, he can definitely make a good contribution to this team. He would be a good addition. If I'm just speaking about what he can do, yeah, he'd be a good addition to the squad, and he'd have some useful qualities. So yeah, I'd definitely like to have him.
Yeah. After that, we got the Czech player Patrick Schick, who's had a breakout year in the Bundesliga. Actually scored more goals than Haaland in the Bundesliga this year. He's been brilliant for Bayer Leverkusen. What do you think on Patrick Schick? Do you think he would be a good player for Real Madrid?
I must admit, I don't think that he is the kind of player that, that's tailor-made to succeed at Madrid, if I'm being totally honest. He isn't the quicker. He's a good player and he has some speed, but he isn't the fastest. And he also doesn't link up play as efficiently as Benzema. To a player at Madrid, if you're not the fastest, for a striker, you have to be really good, in terms of linking up play and in terms of a natural goal getter. I don't think that's him at this time. He can make a good contribution, but not an amazing contribution.
Yeah. Okay. So next, Alexander Isak or Real Sociedad wouldn't have to move country. He would stay in Spain, and I think he's been brilliant this season so far. Dropped off a little bit since Sociedad has dropped off. So what do you think on Alexander Isak?
Quite simple explanation I'm going to give. Good striker, and people say that he's similar to Benzema, but you can see why. Of course, he isn't similar to Benzema. He has some good qualities similar to Benzema, but he isn't like Benzema. But he's good on the ball, quick as well. Can beat his player, good goal scorer also. Player Madrid have been interested in the past. He can be a good player for us.
Yeah, one thing I can say about him, he can carve out a chance as well, and I think for Sweden he's the talisman, and I think maybe he could bring that to Real Madrid if we want to maybe do a counter-attacking side. I think he would be half decent player alongside the likes of Vinicius and Mbappe. He's pretty quick. So lastly, my guy, it's Dusan Vlahovic. What do you think on Dusan Vlahovic? Do you think, considering he'd be a lot cheaper than Erling Haaland, and because he's scored more goals than Haaland last season with no continental competition, do you think Dusan Vlahovic should sign for Real Madrid?
Well, natural goal getter, of course, excellent in terms of his positioning and how easy he can find the back of the net. You can't just say that for any striker. That's quite difficult to do for many strikers. And so for him, to have that, acknowledgement at such a young age, I definitely believe that, that's good for him, because he's so good. Most Serie A goals in the calendar year, I think, this century. So that's good. That's amazing in my opinion that many people can afford that claim. However, in terms of a striker, while I'm touching on him, I must admit, why we are saying that we are signing Haaland is because he's such a generational talent who will make he's a kind of player where you have to adjust your team for, and Real Madrid knows that. That's why they are interested in him. And in terms of the other targets, I don't think that Madrid is in need of a striker, especially if we sign Mbappe, because he can also fill in as a number 9 if there is no strikers available. Because let's not forget we also have Jovic. Of course, I'm not going to sit here and keep saying I have 100% faith in Jovic. Of course, that will fade away as time passes. But if Benzema isn't available for a game, then we can easily slot Mbappe at the 9, Vinicius on the left, Rodrigo on the other side, or Asensio, and it works out. Because with Mbappe, you can easily play as a 9. There are so many options to can still be a 9. So I don't think Madrid are looking for a striker because they need one, especially if they sign Mbappe. I think they are looking for a striker. They're interested in Haaland because of Erling Haaland. I think that's why you're not seeing the links with Vlahovic as much as with other teams, because Madrid don't need another striker. They're just interested in Haaland because he's Erling Haaland. That's why I believe that we shouldn't sign a striker, if Haaland doesn't come, because we don't need a striker. We have many players who can be effective in that position. So of course, Vlahovic and Alexander Isak, they can be good additions to the squad. But I don't think that they are the kind of players that Madrid will definitely damage the structure for, like they will do for Haaland, because it's really Haaland. I don't see a player like Alexander Isak coming in and Madrid making drastic changes to their formation or to their structure to make it work. It's only going to happen for a player like Erling Haaland, and that's why there's all the talk about it. That's why I highly believe that a player like Vlahovic will not come to Madrid, because Madrid will not show like strong interest in him like they will with Haaland.
Yeah. Okay. So before we end the podcast, what is your verdict? Should Real Madrid sign Erling Haaland? I'm going to give my verdict just to buy myself some more time. We'll start with yours.
Okay, well, basically before I start, I must say that there are many people who analyze Madrid, respected journalists who also do a lot of work on Madrid, even though they know the tactical difficulties with that. They're all saying yes because of what can happen over the next decade. And for me, definitely, I know that if it happens, that there will be a lot of difficulties in terms of that. But I believe that I do think that it should, and I would say yes because if there's an opportunity to take it, I don't think that that we should pass upon it, especially if we're going to remain stable financially. Of course, there'll be some tough decisions to make, and it has to be managed carefully, But I don't think there will be another opportunity like this in world football, where two of the best footballers in the world and wants to play for your club. Normally, it doesn't work out like that, and if that's the case, then we should take it because it just doesn't happen. So I believe that we should take it, even though the tactical difficulties that might come along with it. That's why not just me, but many journalists who specializes on Madrid news, etc., is saying yes as well because it just doesn't happen,
Yeah, okay, so I'm going to give my verdict. I've been arguing for against Haaland. I've been arguing that Real Madrid shouldn't sign Haaland, but I'm going to go against what I've been saying for the last half an hour, and I'm going to say yes, Real Madrid should sign Haaland because you can't pass on Haaland, can you? It's like saying, would you like to sign Ronaldo in the last 10 years? Would you like to sign Messi in the last 10 years? You can't pass on the opportunity whatsoever. So, yep, I'm going to say I would take Erling Haaland at Real Madrid. Okay, so that's it for today's podcast. I hope all of you have a lovely 2022. Yeah, that's it for today's podcast. Thank you guys for listening, and I'll see you guys next week. Goodbye.